Welcome back to the beautiful Bellagio for another episode of Poker Tonight. In this town, at this time of year, there's really one thing on poker players' minds, and that's the main event of the World Series.
Now, it's often been said that for a poker player, the day you get knocked out of the main event is the worst day of the year. Earlier today, I got a chance to talk to David Singer because he wanted to say the way in which he got knocked out of Day 1B.
And he wasn't too happy.
So, David, you played Day 1B of the main event. Tell us what happened.
I'm out. I got knocked out on a hand where there was a controversy. I feel like I got a very bad ruling. And
at what point was this in the day yesterday?
On maybe the fourth level.
Mm-hmm.
The way the hand went is the flop came out. My opponent bet 3,000. I raised to 9,000 and change. I had a pair and a flush draw. I was pretty sure he was ahead of me at this point, so I'm semi-bluffing in the hand. I want him to fold, but if he calls, I'm not in that bad shape. Mm-hmm. So he thought for a while, maybe 30 seconds or more. His phone rang. He reached in his shirt pocket to get the phone.
This was after you went all in?
After I went all in. He was thinking for a while.
Okay.
He picked his phone out, held it in front of his face, and pushed a button on it and put it away. At that point, I said to the dealer, what happens now? Suggesting his hand's supposed to be killed. I know his hand's supposed to be killed, but I wanted the dealer to say it.
And how do you know this? You've been called out
because
on roll?
I've had my hand killed at the Rio just for having it open when just having my phone open when the cards were dealt. And many times a day at the beginning of the tournament and many times throughout the tournament, it's announced at the Rio, you can't use your cell phone in any fashion. You can't have it out during the hand. You can't look at your phone during the hand. So I was 100% sure his hand would be killed, so I said to the dealer, his hand's supposed to be dead. So the dealer was like, well, I have to call the floor for that. He called the floor person over. He called over Steve Frazier, who I found out subsequently was one of the two people running the tournament at that hour, one of the two people in charge at that hour. And Steve, I think he didn't want to make a harsh ruling. To me, it was as though he didn't have any backbone and didn't want to make what he thought was a harsh ruling and kill someone's hand. Someone at the table said my opponent didn't speak English, which I didn't know. I just came to the table, and Steve made the ruling that his hand was live. To me, it's a very bad ruling. Every person I've talked to in the media and who's been around the Rio the last month and a half thought the hand should be dead.
Well, plus you wouldn't even have brought it to the dealer's attention if you didn't think that it definitely had to be killed, because this, you said it gives your opponent a read on your hand as well?
Right. I gave away information about my hand by doing this, and my opponent, the minute he realized I didn't want him to call, obviously he called. Mm-hmm. So I relied on what the Rio to enforce the rules as they've been doing, as they talk about I don't know how many times a day they announce it, 5, 6, 7 times a day. I think at least you hear this rule about the phone. So to me, there was no doubt the hand would be dead. I subsequently spoke to Jack Effel, who's the tournament director, the highest person in the tournament, and he said he was going to look into whether the person was receiving a text or a phone call. To me, that's irrelevant. I told him that makes no difference. It's a rule where if you break the rule, your hand's supposed to be dead, according to how they announce it every day. And I said to Jack on the phone, Jack, I know that if you were there, you would have killed the hand. And I said, can you tell me honestly right now that you would have let the hand play if you were there? And he wouldn't answer that, because I know that he would have killed it. He didn't want to answer it. He hemmed and hawed about, I'm going to investigate and give me time to investigate. But the whole point of rules like this is that you don't have time to investigate every infraction or every instance while play is going on. That's why they make it so if you break the rule, your hand is dead, to make life easier, to make the game to be consistent and make the game flow better all the time.
So when are you going to find out if they're going to do anything for you because of the situation?
I'm supposed to go over and talk to Jack. Well, he was supposed to call me today, so I'm going to go over and talk to him in a little while. And I don't think they're going to do anything.
What would you like to happen?
I'd like to get my $10,000 back, and I would like to be allowed to play on Monday, because obviously it's the biggest tournament of the year, and I think I was knocked out in a situation where I got a ruling that's completely contrary to their rules.
Mm-hmm. And you said you talked to a lot of your fellow players, and they agree with you?
Yes. Andy Block was right there afterwards. He's very up on the TDA rules, and he thought that just the fact that he pulled the phone out and put it in front of his face was enough to kill his hand in the TDA rules. I don't know. Apparently, they did some investigation. Jack told me afterwards they were going to investigate. They had the other floor people go over and get the man's phone to determine by the sound whether he received a text or a phone call. And then apparently I heard someone else in the press told me they went and checked the security cameras to determine whether, then somehow they determined he didn't look at his phone, which is ridiculous to me. If you pull a phone out of your shirt pocket here, put it in front of you, how can a camera up there tell whether you looked at it or not? But none of that should matter. It's a rule to prevent people from cheating. Most of the time when people have their phone open, they're not cheating. David Levy told me his hand was killed for having a phone open. My phone, I wasn't even there for the whole tournament. I only played 5 tournaments. My hand was killed for having my phone open at one point. I know it's happened to a lot of people, so I'm sure, like I said, if Jack Effel was there, someone who knew the rules and cared to apply them correctly and make a tough ruling was there, my opponent's hand would have been killed.
Another player that was knocked out yesterday was John Grinzivich. John was the winner of the card player free roll into the main event. He's also my good friend and my roommate. We caught up with John earlier today to allow him to tell his story. Welcome to Casa, John Grinzivich and Rich Belsky. John and I are roommates here in Las Vegas, and John was the winner of card players free roll into the main event. John played yesterday, day 1B, and how'd it go, John?
Went pretty good till about 11 o'clock, and the only time I got my chips all in all day, I got them in at a big favorite and took a really bad beat, but I think I played really good yesterday. I chipped away, played a lot of small pots, built my stack up to about 40,000. Blinds are around 3-6, and really big hand came up.
Well, before we get to the big hand, you're in a position that so many people will want to find themselves in. You're, this guy from, wherever in America and found his way into playing the main event. You're, under 30 years old. Give us some of your feelings as you walked in. Did you have butterflies? Did you play tight the first couple levels because of your nerves? Anything like that?
Sure. I played tight all day. I was nervous going in. I was looking around the room for big pros, and they were all around me. I think Seidel was sitting at the table right next to me. Jennifer Harmon was sitting at the table right in front of me. I think Jawanda was at the table right to my left. And although at my table I lucked out, I don't think any big time pros that I recognized or that I was concerned of playing with were at my table all day. I pretty much had the same table all day, and the play was nothing special at all. But just being there with 1,500, 2,000 other players and playing for 8, 9, 10 hours, it was good. It was certainly an experience.
Okay. Well, everybody hates bad beat stories, and yours, how you got knocked out last night, is definitely a bad beat story. Do you want to tell it?
I built my stack up to about 40,000, and the blinds were 3-6, and I had ace king on the big blind, and a guy who had been raising a bunch of pots, and I had played back at a few times within the last couple revolutions of the button, had raised again on my big blind, and this time I elected to just call. I was waiting for this guy to try to play back at me at some point because I continued to sort of push him around when he raises, and I was just waiting for him to play back at me, and I just called out of the big blind, and flop come ace queen 6, and I checked, hoping he'd continuation bet, which he had done every single time he raised throughout the day, and he did. He bet 3,500, and it was called, and then I check raised to 10,000. And at which point he went in the tank for a little while and decided to move all in on me.
And he had roughly the same stack as you to start the hand?
A little bit more than I did, about 50,000 or so to start the hand. And just the way I played the hand, kind of tricky, just checking the big blind, or just calling the big blind and checking the flop. I think I have to call there. It was a real tough decision. I just had top pair. It was for my whole tournament.
Now, when you're making that decision, were the ESPN cameras around? Were there people crowding the table? Was it a spectacle?
It was, actually. It was. Whenever I made the big check raise, at least 3 or 4 people, a couple chip count reporters and a couple card player update reporters came around, and when the kid moved all in, More and more people come over. At this point, there was probably 8 or 9 people standing around watching the table. And then when I called, and the dealer announced loudly to the room that, table 23 all in call, at that point everybody came around and was around the table, and there was cameras and microphones, and he hit a 3-outer in my face on the turn, and I was out. That's it. He was on a stone cold bluff. He had 10 jack, and he needed to hit a king on the turn of the river, and he turned it, and that was all she wrote.
I don't need to ask you how you felt afterwards, so I won't. But the question is, does the fact that you made the right call there, is it any consolation for you? Do you feel good about your play, despite the fact that the result that happened?
I feel good about my play. If I had to do it again, I would. I don't like the fact of getting all your chips in on day one in big pots. I don't think that's really the way you play a 7-day tournament. But, this particular situation, I was kind of waiting to set this kid up all day, and I wanted to play at least one big pot where I could catch this kid making a mistake, and it worked out exactly how I like it. Just the cards didn't fall right this time.
It's poker, right?
That's poker.
Better luck next year to both John Grinzivich and David Singer. Today, Day 1C started for many players, 1,706 to be exact, but there have already been a number of eliminations. So right now, we're going to play a game called Playin' or Busted.
Christy, this isn't in the script.
I know, it's in my script, so just go with it, okay?
Okay.
First on the list, David Fan.
So I'm supposed to tell you, if he's in
Playin'
or
or
he's out?
busted?
Wow, what a fun game this is. Let's go with in. He's in.
Yes, he is. He's still playing. You see, you're good at this game.
All right.
Nelly the Rapper.
I'm going to say he's still in too.
No, he's not. Nelly has been busted.
So I guess you could say he's not number one.
And he's not taking off all of his clothes. Okay. Robert Mizrachi.
I'm going to say he's in.
Yes, you're right. He's is still in.
Okay.
Going for bracelet number 2 this year. Jared Hamby.
I'm going to say he's still in too.
Yes, see?
You get all these people that are really good and probably are going to make it deep into the main event. So.
Yeah, that's true.
Tough
How
game.
about Jose Canseco?
I'm going to say out.
You're too good. Why do you say he's out?
Oh, I don't know. No reason, because he's not a well-known poker player
Yeah,
who I
you're
would
right.
expect to go deep. These are just
No
pretty much logical
no home run
choices
here. Jose Canseco is out. How about Shannon Elizabeth?
I'll say she's in too. But
Nope.
She's
No,
out.
Out.
Mm.
Beautiful, but busted. Thanks for playing, Rich.
Next time, try to let me know when you're going to incorporate some really cool game like this, okay?
Okay, maybe.
Cool. All right.
Also still competing today are Phil Ivey, Daryl Gigabit Dickin, Chad Brown, Gavin Griffin, and Alan Cunningham.
Today's casualties include Phil Locke, Tim Fan, and Chris Bigler.
Day 1D of the main event starts tomorrow, and that will be the last Day 1 event before the Day 2s begin. The Bellagio Cup 3 officially ended its preliminary events yesterday, and if there was, one player that could receive a Bellagio Cup 3 Player of the Year Tournament Series kind of thing, there would be one, but it's not a real thing, so
Well, who would it be? Don't keep us in such suspense.
it'd be Tom Dubrilovic.
You finally learned how to say his name.
Yes, I did. It took a while, but since he actually won 2 events at the Bellagio. He won event number 2, a $2,500 buy-in, and event number 13, a $5,000 buy-in, as well as making a final table at the World Series of Poker. So I've had to say his name a few times. So
Well, we're all very proud of you.
Oh, thank you.
Until the start of Day 1A of the $10,000 buy-in World Poker Tour Championship, which begins on June 10th, single table satellites and mega table satellites, will be available here at the Bellagio.
That's it. So thanks for watching this episode of Poker Tonight. We'll be back tomorrow, as always.
Good night, everybody.